Hello everyone, today I'll be talking about Betancourt Lake. So Betancourt Lake was named after a Native American word for buffalo. Unfortunately, the website does not provide which language family it belongs to, and further information could not be found. I chose this location as I lived on this lake during my childhood, often going out with my friends and family on the lake. This is the most downstream lake on the chain, can be seen in the bottom left of the image. This lake receives water from the Nippersink and Redhead lakes. Another interesting fact is that it is actually the largest watershed of the lakes on the chain. A watershed is going to be an area that receives water from rainfall or snow, and in this instance, it channels it into the Bestankie. The lake is located in the northeast part of Illinois in Johnsburg, Illinois. So the relevant history of human use of land is tied to two native groups, the Potawatomi and the Ho-Chunks. The Potawatomi, whose name means keepers of the sacred fire, are a native group that resided in the Great Lakes region and during the period of U.S. settlement were located in the northeastern Illinois, particularly in Lake County. This group had less of a focus on agrarian practices and therefore emphasized hunting, fishing, and gathering. They also grew crops, though to a lesser extent than the Ho-Chunks. The primary game for this group involved deer, elk, and beaver, and for the biotic pyramid, this therefore provides the game they hunt, the crops they eat, and the food that they gather. Due to the harshness of winter, one survival mechanism many tribes adopted was the splintering of larger groups at the onset of winter. Thus, during fall, they would disperse and regroup in the coming spring. One important aspect of this were the communal events that would take place as they became reconnected, involving fishing from the many streams surrounding them and hunting buffalo. As it was a time for regrouping, villages were built during this time and placed strategically at the edges of body of water, such as that of Bestankie. This gave them great access to food, water, among other resources, in the vegetation-rich land. One important aspect of the Potawatomi way of life are the sacred bundles, and these are going to be sacred. These are going to be bundles that are made of sacred artifacts that are passed down from generation. And other important cultural aspects involve the retainment of oral traditions. Now, for the Ho-Chunks, you may know them as the Winnebago. This was a former name given to them by a conflicting tribe that means people of dirty water. There are two primary theories of settlement of present-day Illinois for this group. The first involves immigration from the East Coast from the years 800 to 1200 AD, with a trek taking place alongside the Ohio River. The dirtier water name is actually due to the fact that during summertime, there is a lot of dead fish spawn that is produced then on the coast, which I can personally attest to. So for this, the Ho-Chunk relied more heavily on agriculture than the Potawatomi and involved large gardens with fiber bags buried in the ground to store dried corn, beans, and other items, especially for the winter. Hunting and fishing for this group typically involved using a dugout canoe, traveling up the Wisconsin and Fox River, and then hunting there. Thus, this group's biotic pyramid was slightly different than that of the Potawatomi due to a larger focus on agriculture and thus less on the animals around them. On the right hand is going to be taken from the Milwaukee Art Museum, as it's going to be a painting of a basket. So the Ho-Chunk lived in single large villages with 12 patrilineal clans. This means that the lineage was derived from the male figure. This large grouping is therefore indicative of the closeness of the group, and it's theorized that the tribe was actually matrilineal previously, but the introduction of fur trade had introduced greater significance on hunting, thereby permitting the males in the tribe to have more power. This is argued for due to the focus on agriculture and the woman's relationship on it, as well as the special relationships that matriarchal figures have in this group. This cultural shift was demonstrated again in Kennecott Reflections, where the introduction of the fur trade in Alaska provided a cultural shift for the indigenous Alaskan group. Another interesting aspect of this group was their emphasis on the warrior mentality, which may be in part due to their relative scarcity in resources and conflict with other groups as a result. Regarding their religious beliefs, their deities are based in nature, with the focus being the sun, earth, and moon, where animals also play an important role with the ethereal. This is an example of the recognition of one's biotic pyramid and respect thereof is spoken by Leopold, where each part of the biotic pyramid provides sustenance to the next level. When taking fish from a lake, for example, it was not a matter of entertainment as it common is today, but sustenance and also respecting the life that provides them food. Regarding the resource use, one major importance was the recreational use of the land, whereby historical ties to the land and culture were formed. In addition to the land supporting these groups, the lake provided a great village area with access to resources that they needed. Through this, additional activities were able to be pursued, such as spirit quests in the case for the Ho-Chunks, and oral traditions in the form of Potawatomi. And one oral tradition would be involving tobacco smokes, which was actually thought to soothe and purify their hearts. This theme is also common with the Ho-Chunks, where tobacco was thought to be a divine gift from the Earth Maker. The biotic pyramid for these tribes involve agrarian and hunting practices, with the importance of recognizing their role in the pyramid as well, exemplified through the Ho-Chunks' spiritual practices and beliefs. Now, with respect to resources themselves and their ability to sustain the tribes, they were scarce. Their scarcity common throughout the Great Lakes region, and it's characterized by the splintering of the groups during the winter, to therefore limit the number of resources being extracted per unit area and increase their chances of survivability. In terms of subtractability, that is the ability to exclude one from a resource unit. This was not particularly demonstrated in my findings for each tribe. This could be a result of cultural differences between the native groups and the individualistic and property-focused perspective of Westerners. So the county that McHenry County is named after is going to be named after Major William McHenry, which is a tongue twister, a commander in the Black Hawk War. Now, the settlement of the Fox River Valley is a conflict that arose between tribal groups and the U.S. From the 1804 treaty granting most of the now Illinois land to the U.S. Many native leaders thought that they were swindled out of more land than what they agreed to due to deceptive language in the treaty. This ceded land went up to the Chain of Lakes area and led to increased hostilities and also the creation of the British Band, which was led by Black Hawk. So eventually, after the conflict ended, another treaty was signed by the Ho-Chunks, which ceded the rest of the land by the Chain of Lakes area, and they moved further north and west. So when settlers first arrived, their description was characterized by what Crone described as geographical, where the focus was on the abundance of the resources and what this would mean economically for the settlers. From the rich soil imparted by the chain and to its waterbeds and timber along the coast of the lakes, an economy was formed around commerce to Chicago and Milwaukee, where a greater shift in agriculture resource extraction, fur trade, and lumber extraction was had. This shift to Western settlers is also characterized by a shift in environmental values where tribal groups were tied to land culturally and intrinsically through the respect of the environment. The new settlers were focused on the monetary gains from the land and its resources. This also resulted in a shift in the biotic pyramid as well as the land itself, as many trees along Pistaki Bay were cut down and the continued expansion of the fur trade whittled down the numbers of animals in the area. The Fox and the connecting lakes such as Pistachio were important commerce route prior to 1850 and prior to the establishment of railroads because it provided an important route to the Mississippi. Now, the lake has shifted towards a more recreational and entertainment focus use than the previous two periods of native use and settlement. There's an additional distinction between recreational use and the natives and those living there now, as activities done on the lake now or afforded by are not done for sustenance or survival, rather they're done for entertainment. Pistaki Lake, like all lakes on the chain, are under the control of the Fox Waterway Agency, and they therefore control the laws and how people are able to operate themselves on the lake. As a result of the water-rich land, this soil is actually going to be extremely fertile and continues to be, and is also the reason why Johnsburg is a town of German farmers. Another change is going to be the lack of biodiversity discussed earlier, due to, again, the urbanization land, fur trade, and overexpansion. As stated, it was primarily used for recreation now, which involves boating, water sports like water skiing, waterfowl, which is going to be hunting of aquatic birds, fishing, snowmobiling, and among other activities. Another impact of this body of water was the cultural impact from the agriculture and the impact that helped produce. In my town, there's going to be a tradition. There's an annual harvest festival that is in German. I'm going to butcher it, but Saufen und Spiel, which means drink and play, where the entire town comes together to celebrate. Thus, this land was used both provides monetary as well as cultural value and a sense of community for the people. Now, an unfortunate aspect of the loss of intrinsic value from the land that was held by the native groups was going to be the lack of environmental care for the land. This is going to be seen from the environmental impact that human activity has had on Pistaki Lake relative to other lakes in the county. Particularly, every metric, the lake is polluted much more than the median values of the other lakes in Lake County. Even more, the concentration of nitrogen and phosphorus in the water suggests that fertilizer runoff could be causing eutrophication. And these small changes in the water could have a great impact on the biotic pyramid of the plant life, fish life, and in the water. This is further exacerbated by lack of data, where they're not collecting enough information on the current amount of plant life, which could prevent further light from being shed on the issue. In terms of the human impact, the major change made to the river is going to be downstream of the Pistaki, and it's going to be Stratton Lock and Dam, and it provides a passageway between the chain and the river that's used mainly, it's been used recreationally. The laws for the lake are again focused on recreation, demonstrating the primary use of the lake now, where the main game being hunted are aquatic birds. Hunting is not made available to the public unless obtained through a permit. Thus, there needs to be a provider, and those who want to extract the resources must adhere to the rules set by the government. And that's going to be such as not placing a trap a certain amount of distance from another person's trap, for example. Um, Now, the lake, in terms of recreation, does not take away from another's ability to use it, meaning that it's going to be a public good, unless, of course, it's the 4th of July, in which case additional people might impact your ability to enjoy the lake. And that's going to be all I have. Thank you, everybody, and have a great day.